Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm Abby with We Counsel, and today we are going to be talking about offering messaging packages to your clients. And we have a lovely guest speaker who's joining us, Sina Moran, and she primarily does message therapy with her clients. I do want to let you know that we're going to be sending out a video recording of this webinar after we conclude, and we'll also be sending the slides out to you so that you can review them. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, we'd love to hear from you. There is a question pane in your GoToWebinar control panel that you should be able to type your questions into, and at different points periodically we'll stop and go ahead and answer those. So again, thank you for joining us, and welcome, Sina.
Thank you, Abby, and thanks everybody for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about expanding your practice with messaging packages. A little about me: my name is Sina. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. I'm also a behavior analyst and a certified rehabilitation counselor. I primarily work with anxiety and mood disorders, and my approach is acceptance and commitment therapy, so it kind of works pretty nicely with messaging packages because we use a lot of like homework and things like that. So I started working online a couple years ago when my husband and I moved abroad for his job, so I had to kind of transition pretty quickly from working at a community-based agency into the online world. And at first I started working with a couple of online-based companies, and that is where I kind of got introduced to message-based therapy that I was a little bit skeptical about in the beginning, but then I found that it actually was pretty effective and I really enjoyed using it. So it was earlier this year that I decided to start my own practice here with We Counsel, and of course, like, the first thing I wanted to do was figure out how I can offer message-based therapy through the platform so that I could keep offering that kind of service to all the consumers out there that are really attracted to it. So to get started, we'll talk about what is message-based therapy, and it isn't too far off from what you probably already think it is. It's basically therapeutic messaging over the course of a week or a month. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the live chatting that's available on We Counsel. When you go into the live session room to do a session, there's like that little text box, and sometimes there are clients that like to have just like a live chat rather than a video or audio based session. So it's over text, of course, but unlike the live chatting, it isn't live. So you can offer like a message package that lasts over a week or a month, where messages are kind of exchanged in the own time of the client and the counselor. So putting together a messaging package kind of organizes all of this and kind of defines some structure and puts a price to it so that we can use it as a billable service. So we'll get started talking about the benefits for our consumers when it comes to message-based therapy. So this is a pretty popular new form of therapy with a lot of young people, especially. The internet is this great big thing now, and people are finding that they can reach out to a therapist and just text and type to them, and they find that to be really, like, it really reduces their anxiety. There is a lot of anxiety that comes with starting therapy, or even having to be face-to-face, or even just having to respond to questions live can be pretty scary for a client just starting out in therapy. So being able to come to therapy and kind of feel it out by just texting and emailing to a therapist back and forth can be really helpful for a client starting out. And it's also helpful for them with telling their story for the first time. It can be a really scary thing. And so them being able to take their time to type everything out and explain themselves and describe what they've been through and what they're experiencing is really helpful for them and gives them a lot of room for comfort there. And also, of course, it helps, like, online counseling, of course, is already very convenient, but message therapy is even more convenient in that nobody has to commit themselves to a specific date and time. So That's really nice. A lot of consumers really like that. And something that I've gotten feedback from my own clients is that they really enjoy that they can save and reread responses that they've gotten from me. They've found that some responses really resonate with them, and they like to write them down somewhere, print them out, and they'll refer to that repeatedly when they're going through like an anxious episode or something's really stressful, and it helps them to kind of stay on track and keep up with what they've been learning in therapy. And continued, like I said, it's a great way for them to kind of get started with therapy. I like to refer to it kind of as like a gateway therapy. A lot of times through the course of message-based therapy, a client will decide that they want to do a telephone session, or they want to graduate into like a video-based session. So it doesn't always mean that they're going to stay message-based forever, but it can be like a nice way for them to get their feet wet and get used to counseling. A lot of you might be familiar with narrative therapy, which is kind of having therapy through telling your story, or especially writing your story. So message-based therapy, of course, involves writing your story, so it kind of really is that therapy for weeks or months, however long they want to be doing this. Also, a lot of times I've heard from clients, like in video-based, like standard 45-minute session, that, you know, leaving a session, they're like, there was so much more I wanted to talk about, and I didn't get there, I forgot about it. And with message-based therapy, you don't have like that 45-minute window that they have to cram everything into, and they can take their time organizing their thoughts and sending it to you like as it comes to them, so nothing really gets lost. And it also gives them, clients that are extremely depressed, or even clients that are afraid to leave the house, or just talk if they have extreme social anxiety and it's hard to talk face to face with anybody and express themselves in any shape or form, text therapy really gives them that opportunity. It gives them a voice and a way to communicate and express themselves fully and thoroughly. So that's one of the best benefits of message-based therapy. And I'm sure you guys might have some other ideas or other experiences yourselves, and if you have anything you'd like to comment, please feel free to do so now.
So it doesn't look like anyone has thought of anything yet, but if they do, we can share it when they do. I know that in my experience, providers say that messages help them to set priorities and agendas for live sessions or video sessions.
Yes.
So that could also be one benefit for the consumer, so you know what's most important to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I'll bundle a service like a messaging package with having like a live video or telephone or even live chat session throughout the week too, so you can kind of use both. And some clients have really enjoyed taking advantage of kind of getting a bundled service like that. So moving on.
Well, if anyone shares their thoughts, I'll let you know.
Definitely, just pop in there with anything anybody has to say. So yeah, and then of course there's a lot of benefits for us too as counselors. So like I said, with like the clients that are very nervous about starting therapy, message-based therapy is a really great way to establish rapport with these consumers, because they're really nervous, they're not sure what to expect, and the minute they start getting messages back from us saying, like reflecting back and validating their experience, it's immediately giving them rapport and or giving them like that comfortable feeling that they want to keep going with therapy, because once they start opening up, they're going to want to keep going. And of course, offering a messaging package is going to expand your client base, because there's a lot of clients out there that's just looking to communicate with a therapist by email or by text. A great part of message-based therapy is no show, no problem. There's really no committed time and date for somebody to be missing. And well, if for some reason they ask to have like a weekly messaging package and then never send you a message, you know, it's not that you have blocked out time for that person and missed out on other opportunities just for them to not show up. So that takes that whole problem out of the picture. Of course, it's really nice that you can respond in your own time. You can take your time with responding, and you don't have to be like fully prepared and in a session at a specific time to respond. And we get to take our time reflecting on messages that received from the consumers, and really think about how we want to respond and organize our response. And something that I especially like, especially with the type of therapy that I do, is I can ask like really objective questions, like asking about specific thoughts, or how often they're feeling angry or sad, asking specific questions about thoughts and moods and what's going on. The client will send back a message with very concrete answers back. So nothing too, well, they will sometimes still be very vague in messaging, but it's much less so than it can be in person. So, but typically the responses can be a bit more concrete. And it also offers less room for ambiguity and confusion. And sometimes, you know, if the client is going to be conflicting with things that they're saying, it makes confronting them about it a little bit easier, because you can actually show that this is what they said, rather than them kind of being like, no, I never said anything like that. I've never gone through that. So, and also we get to take the time to make our responses back to clients extremely clear and understandable, using bullet points or breaking it up into little paragraphs, so it can be easy to read through. Not that the clients are good at making their messages very clear and understandable, but at least we can do that back to them. If you offer homework in your sessions, even if it's something just as simple as, you know, trying to think a little bit more positively or identifying some positive thoughts throughout the day, consumers can be held more accountable with that. Like they can actually share that with you, and you can be tracking their progress with homework assignments. And we're better able to check that. And having them, like, one of my favorite homework assignments to give is to give yourself some positive mantras in the morning and some forgiving ones in the evening. And so the client can share that with me. And by actually taking the time to type it out and send it to me, it's different than just kind of thinking it for a brief moment in your head. So it makes the homework a bit more effective and more easy to track. And of course, more objective. Everything becomes a bit more objective and measurable if you use that, so you can assess progress a bit more easily as the counselor. And something pretty cool about message-based therapy is you're hearing from the client over the course of a whole week or a whole month. So you can hear from them in the morning and in the middle of the day and in the evening, or on a Monday and then again on a Friday, and you can kind of see how they go through, you know, different moods and anxieties as the week goes on, as the day goes on. So you're seeing them in a much expanded view than in just in that 45-minute window of the live session. And for counselors just starting out or trying out a new therapy, using message-based therapy, you can pace yourselves and you can take it a little bit slower to follow like a therapy manual and kind of direct where therapy is going. And that's a fun thing that you can do a bit more easily with message-based therapy. And something I just thought of recently was if you're pretty fluent in another language but unsure if you're ready to use it in live sessions, it could perhaps be a nice way to break down some language barriers. If you could work with clients that speak that language but by message, so you can kind of help yourself with translating and taking a little bit more time and understanding that you wouldn't really be able to do in a live session. So that was just a recent thought that I had about this. And if you guys have any further ideas, please throw them out there, or any questions so far too.
We do have some comments and questions rolling in.
Sure.
One individual commented that they would love to start offering this kind of therapy. And a couple of different questions. How do you manage constant texting and messaging from your clients against your time and your family priorities?
Yes, absolutely, and that's kind of perfect. I'm going to be transitioning into the boundary slide next. So I will be addressing that. Is there any other question before I move into that?
Yeah, let me take a look here. One person says you are a great presenter, so congratulations.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
We have another question about whether you know of any research on this form of treatment.
You know, I'm not sure yet, and that is something that I'd love to look into, because this is all pretty brand new with the advent of online therapy and all of that. So I'm sure that will start coming through, and there might already be some stuff in recent journals. But that's a great question.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think, you know, if that's something that you're interested as an audience in getting to know more about research-wise, please let me know in the comments so that we can put together content that will be helpful for you in our blog and in the email newsletter that goes out. We have a couple more questions about time management and pricing, and I think you're going to be covering those later on in the presentation. So
yeah,
it looks
yeah,
like
we're
now's
moving
a good
right on
time
into that. So, all right, well, let me just jump into boundaries right here, and that's like the most important part of offering a message-based therapy package, because of course, if you have a hard time with boundaries, then you really might want to think about if this service is really for you to be offering. So what I do is I identify the times to my clients, like when they can expect a message back from me. I identify that I am at my computer working between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., and that is when they can expect something back from me. And I only commit to telling them that they can get one response within 24 hours. And sometimes I often will get there to them like within several hours if it is during that time frame and I don't have a lot of live sessions on that day. But you know, sometimes it has taken 24 hours to be able to get back to them. And I have some clients that will send me like 10 messages in that time, like 10 short messages, and I'll have other ones that send me like one big message every few days. So every client is different, and so you will want to be catering your boundaries a little bit to each client that you get. And another really important one here is, even if you are sitting at your computer and you do get a message from a client and you're like, you know exactly what you want to say and you can respond right away, but you still don't want to do that, because the minute you respond immediately to a message, the client learns that, oh, sometimes I can get immediate therapy, and you don't want them to ever think that, because if they start thinking that they can get you right away, they'll start to expect that sometimes, and that can end up generating some frustration, and it can end up hurting the therapeutic relationship, and we definitely don't want that. So there have been times that I have drafted up a message and I've had it ready to go, but I've intentionally waited 1 or 2 hours to send it, just so that I don't end up in that like relationship where they're expecting it to be right away. So, and of course, be careful that when you're writing back to your client, check and see how much did they write to you, and now how much are you responding. You don't want to be consistently responding with much more words than the client has been sending to you. So sometimes that's going to be necessary. Sometimes it'll work because you're going to be explaining like a big long thing, like a technique or something in response to something that they're going through. But if this is like a consistent problem, you're going to want to look at like how much effort you're putting into this compared to how much the client is putting in. So you don't want to be doing that either. And then clarifying with the client, like if you're going to be doing a weekly package, which is what I primarily recommend, tell them like you work Monday through Friday, and so the messaging, the service will start on a Monday, and then Thursday at noon is like the latest that they can send a message and expect a message back from you, because you're going to be billing on Friday. That's basically how I do it. So I outline that to them. I have that in the informed consent, which we'll touch on later as well, so that they know what to expect. And when I identify those times and I say these are the times I'm working, I stick to that. Even when I get that message and I know someone's messaged me and it's 10 p.m. and I'm in the middle of a movie with my family, I'm not checking it. So turn it off, put it away, and that's why strong boundaries need to be in place if you're going to be offering this kind of service. So I know that can be a challenge for some people. Any further questions with boundaries, because this is super important?
It doesn't look like anybody has a question right now, but I'll let you know if they chime in.
Okay, sounds good. So then moving into setting up the messaging package. So how are we going to advertise this and offer this? So I always want to ask people, okay, first of all, what is your hourly rate for, you know, a standard session? And then think about like how long does it take for you to read through certain word counts? How long does it take for you to type out and format responses to things? So kind of practicing with reading through timing yourself with reading through certain amounts of things and writing things, or just kind of getting an idea of what you think how long it's going to take you to respond to things, so that you can kind of understand what is your rate, how much can you charge for this. So I previously worked at BetterHelp before. That's kind of what got me into the whole messaging thing. If anyone's heard of BetterHelp, it's one of the big companies that offer unlimited therapy for a monthly subscription. And they basically, I was finding that I can read and respond to like 1,000 or 1,500 word message, and I can respond very thoughtfully within an hour. But that's after I've been doing this for a while, and so that's pretty quick, I think. Other people, that might take them a lot longer, and some people might be like that too. So kind of understanding how long things are going to take, and that's BetterHelp basically pays in 1,000 word increments. So that's kind of a good way to start. And so, like I said, you can bundle this package with a live session, and when you do that, the client is less likely to message so much since they're getting their therapy. But you'll be surprised, sometimes they really just like to message their therapist a lot. And of course, once you have this package set up, you can offer it on your public profile with WeCounsel. So to go again into some examples, BetterHelp, I understand that consumers pay $260 a month for unlimited therapy. Talkspace, on their website, it's like $25. It's as low as $25 and more a week for unlimited therapy. But these providers, of course, severely underpay counselors, as you can probably imagine, and they provide no boundaries or structures for the amount that we're working. And so that makes it really, really hard for therapists, because we end up having to put in our limits, and then the client gets upset because it's not exactly what was advertised. So the great thing about WeCounsel is you can provide this popular therapy modality, and you can define your structure, define your boundaries, and define how much the costs are. And so going back to using word counts for pricing out packages, you can think to do like $50 per 500 words or $100 per 1,000 words. And this is words that the client sends to you. I don't really count the words that I'm responding to them, because that's variable, that changes, and I don't want them expecting something from me. So I just put that on how much the client is going to be sending to me. And then I always space this out over the course of a week. But of course, there are options if somebody wants to be paying like a big price. You know, you can do it like monthly, or I've even toyed with the idea of doing it per message, and with some clients that might work, but I haven't done that one. And so this part kind of cleans it up a little bit, gives you an idea of what you could be offering, and this would be a good idea to put in your informed consent, so that the clients are extremely clear with what the package is, what it entails. So this is kind of puts it out there really nicely.
We've got some questions rolling in for you.
Let's hear them. I hope I can answer.
So, in crisis situations, how do you establish your boundaries?
In a what kind of situation?
In a crisis situation.
I do make that clear from the beginning that this is not the correct therapy modality for crisis or emergency. So they have to know that, and I recommend that they find their crisis line if that's something that happens, because if it's in the middle of the night, and not gonna lie, I have read messages outside of my on time, but I won't respond to them. And I've seen, sometimes they make it out to be a crisis, but they know that this is not a crisis thing for them to be using for crisis situations, and I'm not going to be responding. So that's in with the boundaries.
So we have another question coming in that says, this person is saying 1,000 words sounds like a lot in text message. Do any of your clients do this live chatting on GChat or even emailing? And I think, Rudy, you are referring to text message therapy, which this is actually not text message therapy. This is secure email therapy. So the WeCounsel portal allows you a secure platform where you can exchange email-like messages And in that context, 1,000 words really isn't that much. But if you have anything to add to that about, the length of a message, about how long does 1,000-word message take you to process?
Yeah, like I said, I can read through 1,000 to 1,500 word message and respond pretty thoughtfully within an hour or hour and a half. Um, But usually what clients will do, like I say up to, like, okay, for example, looking at the packages here, up to 1,000 words for $100 in 1 week. Some clients, they're going to take that and they're literally going to draft up a 1,000-word message to you at once, and they're going to send it to you, and you have basically 24 hours to sit down, read through it, and respond. Other ones are going to just be sending you like brief 100, 200 word long messages like every day. So it depends. Every client is different. You never know what you're going to get, and that's why I have the various level of packages. So, 1 week they might have a lot that they want to write to you, and so that's when they're going to ask to use package 2, or maybe they ask to use package 1, and then they end up going over, and that's when you'll clarify with them, like, okay, you've gone past like this limit. Do you want to upgrade to package 2 before I read through and respond to this? And of course, and I'll get into that in the informed consent, you want to clarify that with them before you just move forward with that. So you'll get messages, and you'll get several messages that make up 1,000 words, or you might just get one big one. And the same goes for the 2,000 and 3,000 word packages. So it can be a lot, and you will be surprised that there are some people out there that can write a lot. So that's
so
why you want to define
questions.
it. Yeah.
Is this considered an effective form of therapy, and how do you determine who's a good fit and who isn't?
Is this considered a what form of therapy?
An effective form of therapy, or maybe how do you measure effectiveness amongst your client base?
Yeah, I have found this to be very effective. Otherwise, I wouldn't have jumped into it and continued to use it in my private practice. Working with BetterHelp, I got tons of people that just wanted to do message-based. And, I mean, for example, I had one client that wouldn't even leave his bedroom, and we started with just message-based therapy, and we never did graduate to other levels, but after like 6 months, he traveled out of the country. Like, he was so scared to leave his own bedroom, and just through messages, he was able to get through therapy in such a way that, like, he was finally able not only leave his bedroom, his house, but his city and his country. So I've definitely seen huge progress in clients getting through anxiety and depression and PTSD and grief and trauma. I generally measure this by asking questions throughout therapy, like asking them, how often they have felt anxious and have been able to follow through with something that they wanted to do for themselves, like in the past 24 hours or the past week. And so I kind of repeatedly go through these questioning just to measure progress, and it helps them with measuring their own progress as well by doing that. And so, kind of like I said in the counselor benefits, we're able to ask those questions and track these things like data a little bit easier than we can in weekly live sessions.
How do you decide who message therapy is right for? Have you ever come across a client that it wasn't right for?
Yes, it's happened before that I've had clients that I write back to them and I've asked them questions and tried to direct them, and they just start bombarding me with it's like they don't even want responses. They just need an outlet to get things out to. So in those cases, I've kind of just changed my approach, and I've defined it with them, and I've said, listen, I've been trying to help you and to offer you techniques and work with you to better understand yourself and what you're going through, but it seems like you're not really receptive to that, and you just want somebody to talk to and read your messages. And I don't really feel as comfortable with that, because I don't think that they're really improving themselves, but for some, that's all that they really want, is to be listened to. So it hasn't been very often. I guess what would be a problem is somebody who doesn't write well. I have had a client before that just had really, really poor spelling and grammar, and it was actually really hard to understand what she was trying to say. And this only happened to me once, and I did refer her to either doing face-to-face therapy or finding another counselor to work with because I wasn't understanding anything she was saying. So, and it wasn't a language barrier. It was just, it was like she was typing in the dark or something. I don't know what was going on there. But for the most part, everyone that I've worked with.
I can imagine that would be hard.
Yeah, that was a tough case. But other than that, like all of those populations that I've worked with older people, lots of young people with anxiety, depression, trauma, grief, depersonalization, lots of things using primarily message-based. And sometimes it's a bundle. So.
Have you ever offered a prepaid subscription plan?
I haven't done that. I've thought about doing that, but I've just kept it at I bill afterwards just in case. Because sometimes they'll say, like, I've had a guy, he writes me tons of stuff. That's why I did the different packages. He will sometimes say, I'm going to use package 3 this week, but then he'll only do package 2. So I'll keep it at that, or he'll tell me he's only going to do package 1, but then he'll end up with package 3. So just to clarify things so that there isn't confusion at the end when it comes to billing, I do it that way. But I'm sure you could do a prepaid. I would just be worried about the confusion that could generate sometimes.
We're getting so many good questions. Monique has asked, how do you track the word count? And if they go over before the week is up, how do you handle that?
So I track the word count by basically I'll copy and paste into a Word document real quick just to see like how many words they've used, and then I put it right back into the message, or I delete the document. Ideally, I'm hoping to.
Yeah, we're hoping to incorporate that into the. We're hoping to incorporate that into the software so that you don't.
Yeah,
have to
that would be super helpful, and I would love to see that. So I do that because really word count I have found to be like the best way to track this, because I started with kind of saying like, oh, you can do a message packet, just send me messages, this is the message package and this is how much it costs, but then you get some people that just bombard you with so much and others that don't, and it's just a completely different level, like the time that you're putting into it. So I had to spell it out in that kind of a way. And what was the second part of that question?
If someone goes over their message limit for the week and maybe it's the middle of the week, how do you handle it?
What I'll do, because that has happened to me, is before I even, like, because I'll just check the word count right away before I even read it, and I'll respond and say, listen, you've gone over the 2,000 words, you know, do you want me to read this and respond and bill you for package 2, or do you want to just leave it as it is and maybe we can put it into next week for message package 3 or whatever it is that they want to do. So I'll clarify that with them before I like invest time into it just for them to get angry about it. So, and this also shows them that you are tracking the word count and they're not going to get away with signing up for message package 1 and then sending you 3,000 words.
That makes sense, yeah. Annie is asking, so a 1-week package is actually only 4 days. If the client wants to be able to write over the weekend or continuously, do you recommend trying a 1-month package?
Yes, I have thought about doing that, but I haven't done that quite yet because generally what I've experienced is the clients don't want to commit to a whole month and they'd rather pay like as needed, even if they're going to be using it continuously for weeks. But what I do, I very often, I have a guy, he'll send me like his huge message to me on a Thursday night, and he knows that I won't be responding until Monday. And so I'll tell them, you can message over the weekend. You can message Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but you won't be hearing back from me until Monday. So they know my boundaries. They know when they can hear from me, but they'll keep putting stuff out there, like what if they went through something really great or really scary on Saturday, they're going to want to share it with me right away, and they can do that, but I'm just not going to read it and respond until Monday.
Yeah, it sounds like you are echoing just to make sure that those expectations are set at the very beginning.
Yeah.
That sounds like it prevents a lot of confusion.
Yep.
Elliot is saying lots of face-to-face clients need to vent and find it very therapeutic because they're otherwise isolated. He says it's very effective to be a good listener. So I think he's agreeing that this is a valuable form of therapy. It doesn't look like we have any more questions right now, so maybe we could go ahead and hop into the rest of the presentation.
Sure. So following up with this, well, here you go. This is just a little snapshot from my personal public profile on WeCounsel. So I've got my full and half session and my introductory session, and then below that I have outlined my messaging packages. And of course, so far we can't really, there isn't an option to put in like word counts and stuff like that, but a client can look at my public profile and see, oh, she offers weekly messaging, and this is something I think I can afford, and they'll reach out to me about what else is involved with the weekly messaging package. And so that's when we'll talk a little bit more about what the parameters are. So of course, in your informed consent, you want to add in all the details for your message packaging services that you're offering, especially your boundaries and when to, all the expectations. You want to outline that as thoroughly as possible. So this can end up being a lot of text, of course, in your informed consent, but just like I showed you earlier, that that chart with everything spelled out, you want to put that in there so it's at least the basics can be understood. They're going to want to know when they're going to be billed, what to expect, like as far as when they can hear from you, and also definitely explain the difference between what is an administrative message, like setting up a session, questions about billing, and what is a therapeutic message, because you don't want them to become afraid to message you about setting up a session if they think they're going to be billed for a message package, but you also don't want them intermingling, like them venting frustrations and telling you their problems while asking for a billing question or to set up a live session. So that's a really important distinction to make clear, so that when they do that, you can respond and be like, I'm not going to respond to this part because you didn't get the message package, but yes, we can set up a session on this day. And then informed consent continued. This kind of addresses that one question already. Like if somebody does go over their word count halfway through the week, you want to clarify that with them before you move forward so that they don't end up billed for a service they didn't think they were signing up for. And of course, add this into your general informed consent that you send out for general standard therapy so that they know everything that's involved if they do want to graduate up into telephone-based or live video sessions, which is very likely over the course of message-based therapy, that they're going to realize they really like you, they're not scared anymore, and they just want to talk out what they're going through, because that can be a lot more efficient sometimes. Any questions with that?
We do have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Steve is asking if you provide services in states other than your licensing state.
So I'm currently exploring all of this. I guess with the way the laws are, it's best to be safe and just stick to the state that you're licensed in. I did recently learn that you can get licensed in states that you don't live in. You don't have to live there. So certain states that might have reciprocity with yours, you can explore expanding your licensure. With BetterHelp and Talkspace, surprisingly, they have assigned me clients from other states, other countries. I've had a lot of international clients through them, and I have like an extra layer of legal protection through them. But for my private practice, I'm still kind of exploring how I can do this, because that would be another benefit for counselors and clients when it comes to message-based therapy. If you do have international clients, or if you have a client in your state that goes on vacation or goes traveling in another time zone, message-based therapy becomes really doable for keeping in touch and keeping up with therapy without having to deal with scheduling with those time zones. But yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm really hoping, like, there's some talks. I've heard some talks about like a nationwide licensure maybe possibly happening sometime, because with all this online counseling, they're going to have to do something. So
yeah, at WeCounsel, we generally recommend that you practice within the boundaries of the states in which you're licensed.
Yeah.
But that, like you said, there's an interstate licensure compact that applies to some license types, and that doesn't mean that you can't be licensed in multiple states. So it's something to think about if you want to expand your reach. But also, doing message therapy or telehealth in general can help you expand your reach across your license state. So don't forget about all of the people that are 2 or 3 hours away from you that could benefit from your services but don't have access to you right now because of location and proximity. Monique has a question. She says, how do you handle situations when a client may express passive or more active suicidal ideation, barring referring them to calling 911 or going to a crisis center? Do those clients become ineligible for message therapy until they are stabilized? How do you protect yourself from liability when they message you like this during the off hours?
Right. Of course, this is something that's in my informed consent about, like, that this is not a platform for crisis services and that I am obligated to report for, suicidal and homicidal ideation, things like that, so that they're aware that I can act on that and report them for having a plan or something like that. But of course, them saying that, me telling them that this is not a crisis service and that I will not be looking at messages during these times, I feel that that does protect me because they know what they're signing up for. But when I do see that, I immediately refer to their crisis line and, of course, work hard to get them to type out like a contract, like know that they are not going to be acting on these thoughts that they're having. So, and that is something with message therapy, like, it's actually going to be in words if they do agree to, like, the contract, like, no, I'm just thinking this, I'm not going to be acting on this. Since it's typed out, they're more likely to really stick to that because it's there. But that is a good question, and that's a struggle even with regular therapy, of course.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's all the questions we have for right now.
Okay. So moving on to our favorite, every counselor's favorite, is documentation, right? So just because messaging is in text format and easy to read back through and track, it doesn't mean that we get to skip out on writing a note. So with every time that I bill, I make sure that I record a note in their file just for that week of messaging. And I use the standard SOAP note format. So with the subjective, it's what are they communicating to you? What did they present in some of their messages? The objective is I'll put in there, like, what questions or topics do they keep avoiding? What times are they sending messages? Sometimes it's like they are sending at 3, 4, 5 a.m. their time, and that indicates to me they're not sleeping. What topics do they really seem to stick to the most? And any data that I'm taking with their homework or their progress in general. And so then, of course, the assessment and the plan of what you want to move on to next in the next week or the next time that they sign up for this service, and what are your recommendations. So you guys already know that stuff, but that's how it kind of applies to the message-based therapy. And you can start this note at the beginning of the week and kind of add to it as you go through the week. And then just a note on the messaging process. They're going to be writing to you with stuff that they're going through. They're talking about their emotions, their anxiety, they're telling you their story, and this is where you just type back, you reflect back and summarize back to them what they've already written to you. You help them with identifying their emotions and their thoughts. Like I said before, make use of paragraphs and bullets and formatting using bold and italics to really organize your message and make your responses pretty clear and organized for them. You get to choose your words especially carefully in the messaging process, so you can make sure that you're using the right words to get them to keep opening up to you and to really resonate with them. I ask a lot of open questions, kind of the same as in regular talk therapy, and yeah, you get to outline specific tools and suggestions that they can literally print out or write down and keep with them forever. So that's a great thing about messaging. And then some common problems, of course, there's no access to body language, tone of voice, and emotional expression, so that's always difficult. That's like the big problem with messaging. So this is where you just have to ask a lot of questions and ask detailed questions, ask for specifics, you know, how are they expressing themselves? How did they express themselves yesterday? When they were angry, what did they do? And when clients seem to be pretty disorganized with their messages, encourage them to keep messages within like the same thread. And sometimes you can start this by starting the message thread yourself and putting in the subject line like maybe the package that they signed up for, and just asking them to try to respond to themselves rather than starting a new message if they have extra things to put in there after a message that they've already sent. And then forgetting to respond to a message, if you're going to be doing this, you want to be keeping track of who's writing to you and making sure that you respond within those 24 hours, keeping a running list as you go through the day. So that's just a little tidbit there. And then you guys probably have some other problems and solutions yourselves. If anybody, are there questions to address here?
There are more questions. You get a lot of questions on this presentation. Another question about suicidal and homicidal ideation. How do you, when someone messages you without those kinds of thoughts and intents, do you reply to gain the information of their location to make a call to 911?
Yes, and what I do also in my informed consent, I ask for their like where they live, like what city and county, so that I can have that information, so that if any of that comes up, I know what area to be calling.
Good idea. Another person says, do you work with teens with the parents' consent?
No, I don't work with children. I stick to the adults. So
Okay.
there is one teen that I have worked with off and on, and that is with parental consent. And whenever I'm messaging with the teen, I'm also keeping in touch with the parent. So I wouldn't start up like every week that I'm having like talking with him, I talk to the parent too. So, and that's just one exception that I've made.
Okay, do you know of any insurance that cover this kind of therapy, or do you do all cash pay?
I do cash pay, so not sure. And I guess with the super bill, a client could try to send it in for reimbursement to an insurance company, but I haven't heard of any successes with that.
Okay. What are the average number of clients that you can handle in a week?
Oh, you know, that's tough. I mean, I can handle a good 5 to 10 clients pretty easily. Yeah, and at the same time, like I do message therapy, but I also do the live sessions. So I'll have some days where I'm just booked with sessions, and I really can't get to a lot of messages, and so I'll catch up in the morning on the next day. But in general, I'm pretty comfortable with having 5 to 10 of them in a week.
Okay. Have you had any problems with clients not paying you?
I have not had that problem. I make sure that they have a credit card on file before we schedule any setup. So with the message package, you do have to schedule a time so that you can bill it, and so I always schedule it for Friday, of course, like in the middle of the night or in the morning, since I don't do live sessions on Fridays, so it doesn't conflict. And so before, like in general, even with my regular live sessions, I won't book anything unless there's a credit card on file, and if the credit card gets declined, you know, I reach out to them, and I will not schedule anything further until they send me the payment for that service. So fortunately, I haven't had that problem yet. I've had cards decline, and then the client like fixed it, and I did get paid, but I anticipate experiencing that at some point.
Yeah, in case you're not aware, on the WeCounsel software, you can actually require your clients to enter a credit card to even complete registration.
Right.
So you can literally make it so the client can't even send you a message unless they have an active card on file. So that's one positive for doing it on WeCounsel. We've got another person asking, how do you make sure the person you are messaging is the same person every time versus someone that may have gained access to their device? Do you have a code word or something? So that's a good question, and I think the WeCounsel software does a good job of handling that for you, because no one can access the portal unless they have the login information or credentials for that particular client. So unless the client is sharing their login credentials, they're not going to be able to gain access to these messages. Tina, do you have any other recommendations or additions to that?
No, I have thought about that before, but there really isn't anything that you can do to make sure that that is the person, other than just trusting that, you know, they are using their login information and not sharing it with others. And I'm sure it is interesting, like with the texting and the messaging, you do find that everybody does have their own style of communicating by message, and you can pretty quickly pick up when it doesn't seem like the client, or if something else, like I can pick up on a client that just doesn't seem like themselves on a certain week just because they're pretty low for the week, just in how they're talking. So you just kind of have to trust that, and I mean, that's why I use WeCounsel. It's very secure. But it is interesting how much kind of tone you still can get in just messages.
And I know a lot of providers that actually have in their informed consent instructions on how that client can keep their personal information safe. Because they're online and it's so new, clients may need some education in that area. They're not going to automatically know what is secure and what's not secure. So sometimes you have to kind of teach them a little bit the difference between email and the secure portal. So we have another question about how long your live sessions are and how many live chatting sessions can you handle in a week?
Well, the live chat session is it's the same as the live video or audio session. It's the standard 45 minutes for me, and we log in to the session at the start time. And if it's a live chat, instead of starting the video, we just type in the text box. And if it's a video, we start the video. So I can handle, I guess I've done as many as 8 in a day, and those are pretty crazy days. But yeah, that's about it.
So how do you get your clients?
How do I get my clients? Well, I have been learning about marketing myself on social media. I have a website, a Facebook page, and Instagram, and I do still dabble a bit in BetterHelp, and I have had a lot of clients transition over to me here from BetterHelp. So that's been a source. And also I work with a few other companies remotely, and sometimes when a client graduates from there, I'll always give my contact information, like my website, and so they may come back to me here. And through word of mouth, I guess. So.
And WeCounsel is building up our directory as well. So we give about half a referral per provider per month. So that comes out to 6 new referrals a year, and we're growing that directory. So if you list yourself, there's a good chance that you might also get some new client referrals.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Naomi is asking if you do this full time, and you did say that you kind of have sporadically do other things here and there. About what percentage of your working time is spent doing this?
I pretty much do this work full time, and some weeks are slower than others, so I have like other side projects and things I'm always working on. But this is my full time. This is where I get my income. So.
Awesome. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions.
Okay, great. I think it's just one slide left here. It's just about using WeCounsel, and I think we've already addressed all of this stuff. So being able to list on your public profile and how to schedule the package. I always schedule on Fridays. So sometimes they'll get confused and be like, I didn't sign up for a chat session. Why did you schedule one? And I just clarify that nobody has to show up to it. It's just so that I can bill. Starting the message thread yourself to keep it organized, and you can categorize the service as a chat. That's an option with WeCounsel, so it's clear. And maybe, Abby, you might have something to add to that.
Well, I was just going to say we would love to hear your recommendations and thoughts if you're doing message therapy on WeCounsel. I'd love to hear what improvements we can make and how we can do a better job for helping you service your clients. So You know, we're going to be sending out a follow-up email either this evening or tomorrow morning, just sending you the video recording and thanking you for joining us. And feel free to respond back to that and give me your thoughts about how you feel we can, you know, make recommendations and improvements on the software. We do take those things seriously, and we do offer provider focus groups quarterly, and so there are a lot of ways that you can participate in helping build our community and you know, giving us advice as well. So I think we're almost out of time. We've got another question. How do you start out the first session? Oh, that's a good question. Is it free consultation? Do they talk with you first before they sign up? How do you handle that?
Well, pretty often I'll get like a message from an interested client, and we'll kind of talk back and forth about, like, first, of course, I send like the informed consent, and they can get a lot of information just through that document, and then continuing to talk about what to expect back and forth in messaging before actually setting up the first message package, or if it's not messaging, live session, scheduling it. And to start the package for the week, usually the client will jump right in and they'll start that thread and they'll send it all to you. And other times, like I said, I'll start that thread myself and kind of introduce them, like, please feel free to respond when you're ready, like, to this message here, and here we go. So, and they'll get back to you when they're ready.
So, Rudy is asking, can you clarify what you mean about the second bullet point on the last slide, which is schedule your message package to take place on Friday? Rudy, in the WeCounsel software, you have to schedule an actual session in order to bill a client. So what Tina's talking about is that she's scheduling just a random session in non-working hours as a placeholder for that weekly package, so that she can actually end up billing the client for that week's worth of work. And that is just something that you have to do in order to facilitate the billing process, because all of our billing is done through a session. There has to be a session associated. So I hope I was able to answer that.
And I guess if you wanted it to be a prepaid package, I know somebody mentioned that, you would want to schedule that like on a Monday, I guess, when they, or whenever it is that they just declare that they want to do this messaging package.
Right.
But I prefer to do it after the fact. So I just stick with Fridays.
Naomi is asking if WeCounsel offers online journaling as a part of their platform, and the answer is yes. Every client has a journal section inside of their profile. So when your clients register, they'll be able to access a journaling page. They can actually save those journals, and they'll save privately for them until they choose to send them to you, and they can send them to you through a secure message. So that could be part, if you want, it could be part of the messaging package service. So you could review their journal.
Know about that, actually. That sounds great.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any more questions, but Tina, I just wanted to really thank you for joining us. This was one of the most participatory webinars we've ever had. So many questions coming in, and I think it's a really hot topic right now. So I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming. And thanks for everyone. If you have any questions after and you're thinking of something, just respond back to that email, or you can send me an email at success@wecounsel.com. We're happy to answer all your questions, help you get set up, and give you advice on how to offer this services to your clients. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.